What's up, Vox and Hops heads? Here I am, I'm back. Vox and Hops episode number 22. I had a great week. I hope that you guys had a great week. I hope that you spent some time with your loved ones, with your friends, with some great, delicious brews. I had the opportunity of going to a new-ish microbrew here in Montreal, someplace that I hadn't been before. It's sort of on the other side of the city compared to where my normal stomping grounds of micropubs tend to be. So I made my way over there for, I had some friends that were celebrating their birthday there, and it just sort of worked out really well because I got to taste some new beers. And that brewery is called Four Origins, or in French, Quatre Origines. It is located in Griffintown, which is in the southern part of Montreal, southern western part of Montreal. It's located in this factory style setting. It's big, it's airy. It really reminds me of like an American brew pub. When I went in, they have like all the games everywhere. It was fun, it was good. I was looking forward to drinking my favorite beer from them, which is the Hoperation, which is Hoperation, and that is a double IPA which has been dry hopped with cryo hops, but sadly they didn't have it on tap, so I had to try a whole bunch of other different beers, so that was too bad. So I tasted a bunch of their beers, and my favorite one of the night was the Oat Pale Ale. It was delicious. It was hoppy. It was fruity. It was right up my alley, and I really, really enjoyed it that night. My beer of the week is Lagabier's Funky Motte, which is a wild season-style beer, which has been brewed with wild yeast and some passion fruit. And it is an all-around, very well-balanced beer. It's not too sweet. It's not too hoppy. It's not too malty. It's extremely drinkable. It's delicious. It's 6%. It has just the right amount of fruitiness. It's tropical because of the passion fruit, but it's not like overly fruity or like perfumey. It's a delicious, extremely drinkable beer, and it's a beer that I've been drinking since it came out about 2 months ago, and I will continue drinking. I hope that they're going to make it a part of their steady lineup, because I would be disappointed. As for my pairing of the week, just a reminder that I started this last week when I was challenged by my friend Danny Marino, who is a Vox and Hops alumni, the guitarist of The Agonist, is I'm going to be doing pairings of albums and beers. So for this week, I'm pairing together, it's sort of a somber overtone, because the post-rock community, for those of you that don't know, I'm a death metal singer, but I really, really like post-rock, and we lost a post-rock hero, an influencer this past week in Mark Hollis, who is the singer of Talk Talk, and if you don't know who Talk Talk is and you like post-rock, you should absolutely go back and check out their discography, because there would be no bands such as Radiohead, Sigur Rós, Mogwai, or any other big post-rock band right now if it wasn't for Talk Talk. Throughout the 80s and into the 90s, Talk Talk really, really built up a strong foundation for post-rock, and I was saddened when I heard that this happened, and I was sad there'd be no new music. I love new music. I appreciate everything that they've put out and the influence that they've had on all these bands that I like, because all the bands that I like ended up influencing a bunch of other bands, so it's been like a nice, beautiful circle which has been turning and creating amazing music. The album that I would like to pair together from Talk Talk with the beer is Spirit of Eden, which is my favorite Talk Talk album, with, as I have to pair a beer to an album, which is an influencer, I have to pair it with Fin du Monde from Unibrew up here in Quebec, because just as much as this album was an influencer, the Unibrew, Fin du Monde, they were like the first people that were making craft beer, or one of the first people making craft beer up here in Montreal, and a lot of the people that I have interviewed on the podcast that are big like craft beer head nerds right now, craft beer enthusiasts right now, they all started with Unibrew. They were the first ones out there putting out Belgian-styled, Belgian-inspired beers, and Fin du Monde is a delicious, malty, almost caramelly, Belgian-inspired blonde ale, which ranks in at like 9%. It's a heavy beer, but it's absolutely delicious. From what I've read up on the beer, it took them a long time to get this beer to go because they were extremely inspired by Trappist monks when they created this Belgian-style beer. It was brewed and then re-fermented in the bottle, which was a first in the American market at the time of launch. So I just can't imagine the Quebec beer scene without Unibrew. I can't imagine the post-rock scene without Talk Talk. So my pairing of the week is Talk Talk's Spirit of Eden and Unibrew's La Fin du Monde. Today on the podcast is the interview that I did with Dave Boucher 2 weeks ago while we sat down together at one of Montreal's best, if not the best, microbrewery, Dieu du Ciel. Check it out, Vox and Hops, episode number 22 with Dave Boucher of Extensive Enterprise.
I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
What's up, everybody? We're live. Dieu du Ciel Pub. This is Vox and Hops, episode number 22, and I'm with Dave Boucher, the promoter extraordinaire of Extensive Enterprises. Extensive Enterprise.
Extensive Enterprise. No S.
Singular. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah,
a little tired, but enjoying the lovely Montreal weather and the 30-ish centimeters of snow.
Yeah, we got slammed last night.
Yeah.
We got really, really slammed. I woke up and I was like, bah. I should write Dave. See if he still wants to come. We called to see if it was open.
Yeah,
because everything else is closed.
Yeah, like everyone I've talked to today, it's always, like every email I've written, every phone call, maybe like, not sure if you're at the office today, not sure if you're working. And most people are. Like, it takes a lot, I feel, to put a Montrealer out of work. You know, like considering it's snow and not sub-zero temperatures,
or like the freezing rain that we got that really is much more dangerous.
Yeah, so this is a cakewalk in terms of the weather we usually get.
So you're the first promoter on the show, on the podcast.
Interesting.
I've known you a long time.
Yes.
You booked my first big show, or put me on. It was, I believe it was either God Forbid at Lex or Unearth. I think I did both of them. Okay. It was two separate shows, though. I can't remember which was first.
The God Forbid one came up recently because it was on my birthday.
Really?
I think it was God Forbid Nora.
Yes.
Who was it? Walls of Jericho, maybe?
Or Burnt by the Sun.
Burnt by the Sun, yes. It was supposed to be Blood Has Been Shed, who had been a band who I'd furiously tried to book for years and years, and never to this day have been able to book. And they dropped off pretty much close to the show and replaced by Burnt by the Sun, and that's
I remember that.
Pretty fair trade-off.
It was. I remember being very nervous. My first big downtown show at the Lex.
The Lex, the legendary venue. I think at the time too, it was the first show that God forbid it ever quote unquote sold out.
Oh, really?
So they were super excited to be able to tell people they sold out a show.
That's right. Shout out to Doc, who has his own podcast.
Oh, yeah.
The X-Men. Yeah, I'm a fan.
I haven't listened to it yet. I've heard of it numerous times. It's just that there's so many podcasts out now. It's just hard to find time to like listen to them. It's crazy every week.
Especially you're a very busy dude.
Yes.
Very, very busy dude. Let's give people a rundown of what a promoter does if they don't know.
Okay. So I put on shows. A lot's changed since I started doing shows. I think I thought it was 21 years. It's actually 20 years this month that I've been doing shows.
Well,
yeah.
Congrats.
I've been telling people, 20-ish. And then someone recently posted a flyer of the first show I ever did on Instagram. And I was like, oh, that's this year. So, yep. And in about a week, it'll be 20 years of doing shows. So, a quick rundown, in 2019, how it works. An agent will probably reach out to me, and he'll pitch me a few bands in a package. I'll call a venue, try to secure it. If everything sorts out, we work out all the financials of it, announce a concert, put it on sale, and then a few months later, we have a show. It's way more complicated now than it's ever been in terms of setting up shows, in terms of, every band is touring now. It's like it's pretty much the only way you can make money. So it's tours are getting booked farther and farther in advance because dates are becoming more and more scarce because, there's just so much out there. You open Facebook any day of the week and check out what events you have coming up, and you can't even count them on both hands. There's just so much to choose from, and that's, and that's just taking into account usually metal and hardcore and punk. You don't even take into account like pop music, hip hop, every other genre under the sun.
It's like every night of the week there's a concert in town, or 5 concerts in town.
And then like if you Friday or Saturday, you have 3-4 different choices. Like last year was the first year where we had multiple nights where we're doing multiple shows a night. We're doing 2-3 shows a night, which is insane.
I know that October was insane for you.
Yeah. September, October was the busiest I'd ever been in my life. Like it was, usually
60 days. How many shows?
Oh, it was like something like 21 or 22, which for me is just unfathomable, because usually I would do 6 to 7 a month, and so basically business tripled.
That's insane.
And like it was, and they were big shows too. Like I did 3 Metropolis shows, and that, or MTL as it's now known, which is a 200 cap room, which for a small indie promoter to do that many in such a short time span was just insane.
It's still Metropolis to me.
Yeah. Like I catch myself. I always have to tell us.
Let's talk about how this all started. You've told me this story before.
Yes.
When we were at the Bucket List Goes podcast.
Yes.
You gave me this. How did this whole booking life come to be?
So late 90s, I was super into hardcore, and a lot of the bands I was a fan of just weren't coming to Montreal, so I'd have to travel to see shows. So I'd go to upstate New York, Vermont, Ontario, Massachusetts, anything that was kind of in a 6-hour drive to see shows. And I went to a New Year's festival in Toronto, and I had to make it back for New Year's Eve, and at the last minute. So I went to the show to buy merch, so to buy some CDs for the bus ride home and buy some T-shirts and stuff. And I ran into one of the bands playing Reach the Sky, and I started talking to the singer, and I mentioned that I was from Montreal and I'm heading home and I'm bummed I'm not going to get to see them, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, we've always wanted to play there. You should help us set up a show. And I kind of laughed, and he's like, no, give me your email and I'll hit you up. And I was like, sure, here's my email, whatever. And so a couple weeks pass, and Ian hits me up, and he's like, hey, we want to come to Montreal. This is at a time when most bands weren't able to tour full-time. They were all weekend warriors, so everything had to happen on a weekend. So he's like, hey, we're free this weekend. I talked to some friends in Buried Alive and In My Eyes, and yeah, if you can set something up, let me know. So I couldn't believe what was happening. I hit up my friend Fred, who worked at Underworld, and he was just about to start his band, A Death Very Sin, and wanted to kind of pull back on doing shows, so he was looking for someone to kind of take over the reins. And I was like, hey, these bands want to come here. What do I do? And he put me in touch with the owner of Café L'Inconditionnel, which was a Narcotics Anonymous cafe that had a back room that they would rent us for $225 that, depending on who you talk to, could fit 50 people, could fit 300 people. It was never really specified. And I was like, hey, is the room available this weekend? He said, told me yes. I emailed Ian back, and started working out the details. And before I knew it, I had a show confirmed. I asked my friend to make like a shitty flyer and print master or whatever was like the appropriate. I don't think Photoshop existed 20 years ago. I don't think so. No. But yeah, so yeah, like it all came together really quickly. I charged $8. 100 and something kids came, which at the time was phenomenal. I was able to pay all the bands, pay back my photocopies, and it was and I was off to the races, so to speak, because those 3 bands left. They were super happy. They told 3 bands, and then the next 3 bands I booked told 3 bands, and it was just this kind of ripple effect. And before I know it, I was doing a couple shows a month.
Really?
Yeah. So it all snowballed really, really quickly.
And at what point did you stop working and this became your job?
That happened, relatively recently. I think we're at year 7 or 8 that it's been a full-time job. So for 13 years, it was kind of like a labor of love. Had to work a full-time job during the day and do shows on the side type of thing.
I seem to remember you working at an HMV.
Yeah, I worked at the downtown HMV. I was the the punk metal buyer, and then I eventually moved up the chain and was buying, I think, like 80% of the music at the store. So they're just like, hey, your buying patterns are really good. Do you want to take over the urban department? I was like, sure. And then they gave me the pop department, and then they gave me the Franco department, which I thought was, so I was like, you're reaching. Like, but I was able to pull it off. But yeah, like it got to a point where my day job was suffering, and I was sneaking off to the bathroom to like answer my BlackBerry and answer emails. And my boss came to me. He's like, you got to make a choice, man, and I hope you make the right choice. And he was pushing me to like leave and go do this full time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was just
I was expecting the opposite.
Yeah, he was like, go do that. Like if you have a chance, go follow your dream. So I quit before I got fired, and then I was off to the races as being a full-time promoter.
I feel like you're one of the tops in the city. There's the big boys.
Yeah. You have like your
EventCo.
EventCos and Greenlands, and so in the food chain, I fall somewhere, I guess, like in the upper middle. I guess you would say, like, I'm kind of akin to Blue Skies Turn Black, who do a lot of like more indie rock shows. So like we're still a niche promoter, like everything we do basically has some sort of connective tissue to metal. So, like there are bigger promoters than me, and there are smaller ones. So yeah, and I have a pretty comfortable place in the food chain.
I think you're doing quite well.
Yeah, can't complain.
Red Dieu du Ciel, and I've ordered us a beer. I said, what do you like to drink, Dave? And you said, I like IPAs.
You chose an IPA.
So I chose the Mega Mosaika, which is a amped up version of their classic Ultra Mosaika, which comes out in the summer normally.
That's why I haven't had
and
this one.
And it's their momentum. They put out like a 4-pack every month of specialty beers at like a monthly specialty beer. And this month of February, it's the Mega Mosaika. And I was actually, as I told you, drinking this last night, walking home in the snow like a teenager.
It is a little strong. I'll admit that.
It smells good. Color-wise, it's a nice, almost hazy, hay-ish type color. It smells very fruity.
It has that citrus smell to it.
It's good. It's really fresh. Not quite a New England IPA, but still very fruity, not malty at all, not West Coast.
I wish I could add more to this, but I rarely drink, so I'm like, it's beer.
It's good. Yeah. It's good.
It's good.
I'm a big fan of Dieu du Ciel. It's
yes, same here.
One of the classics that I was like, where are you? I was like, we're going to Dieu du Ciel.
Yeah,
it
like
was a very easy
it's
choice,
like
and I've been wanting to come here, and I haven't had the chance to do it on the podcast yet. Who do you think were your influencers booking wise growing up, if you can remember, or if there was anyone?
I would definitely credit the people at Greenland, especially Nancy Ross. She's kind of been like my fairy godmother in booking. Like anytime I had a question, she would answer. Pretty much, everyone that worked there, Paj, Duncan Blair at the time, now he's moved on to EventCo, he would help me. That they were always super helpful. And because I was doing shows that didn't really compete with theirs, that were kind of fringe, I'm sure they didn't really see me as any kind of competition, and we're like, we'll help Dave and do his little weird thing on the side. But no, they helped me get into like bigger rooms. They explained to me like the legalities of contracts. Like they really helped me because I went from doing like handshake deals to having I was like, what's back end, what is like what's a drop count, like all these like terms that agents would ask me for, and I'm like, like, hey, can we get finals for a show? I was like, what? Like I just handed a band a bunch of money. I don't like really keep track of this stuff. So like they were always super helpful in helping me get to where I am today.
Do you think that Extensive has grown more with the disassembly of BCI?
Yes and no.
For people that don't know, BCI was like a big...
Yeah, they were the metal promoter for like the better part of 20 years.
Yeah, shout out to Steph.
Yes.
Yeah.
He did an amazing job in the city. I definitely took over part of it. Like it kind of like almost like a custody settlement. Like EventCo kind of took... the more established acts, like the ones that Steph built, like the Children of Bodoms, the In Flames, the Opeths, and such. And I took a lot of the more like fringy black metal, death metal type of acts, the Dying Fetuses, the Mayhems. I'm trying to think who else I could throw in there, Marduk and stuff like that. So yeah, like there was definitely like a void to be filled. And at the time, I was pretty much exclusively doing hardcore and metalcore shows, and then there was like a void to be filled, and agents started approaching me like, hey, do you want to start doing some more metal type of shows. And I've always been a metal fan, and I had gotten to the point where I'd gotten comfortable with the ins and outs of how things worked, and decided I could take it on and start working with these more established acts.
Do you consider the metal bands more established because they're more organized than hardcore?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely like a huge difference, like running, like a terror show and running like a Halloween show.
Yes, you were mentioning that to me last time. That was the huge show.
It was a huge show. It was like an arena show that we squeezed into Metropolis, and it's night and day in a lot of respects. It's doing like a hardcore show. It's like, hey, we're gonna be there around 3-4 p.m. Maybe we'll sound check. We'll take like a bag of chips and like a bottle of vodka backstage, and that's about it. And you don't have to really worry about anything else. Whereas like when I started doing these metal shows, it was there was marketing plans to be done, and backline to be rented, and like all sorts of crazy stuff. Like the days were much longer, which is one of the first things I realized. I was like, what do you mean I got to be there at 10 a.m.? Like, that's insane. And then when you see these bands showing up with trucks and stuff, you're like, okay, now I get it. So it's definitely, and just like crew wise, like sometimes these bands don't even have a merch guy, these hardcore bands, much less a tour manager. Whereas like when you start booking these metal bands, you have like a whole bus just for their crew, like a TM, assistant TM, the bigger you get, sometimes they have an accountant on tour with them.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It gets kind of crazy, like bass tech, guitar tech, drum tech, blah, 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 blah. It gets pretty crazy pretty quickly with some of these acts.
What is one of the craziest riders you've ever... You don't have to say who it is if you don't want to.
It's not so
out of
much
respect,
like
or like the weirdest thing that you ever had to fulfill on a rider.
I like sometimes like I wish I could remember specific things in riders, but a lot of bands will just throw very off the wall things into the rider just to make sure you're reading it, because they're like, hey, we need these things to just make the basic show work, so they'll kind of test you, be like, did you get the rider? And be like, yeah, you wanted like a bowl of blue M&Ms, and they're like, no, we don't need that, but we do need like you to make sure that the lighting truss is ready, and just all these basic technical things. Like backstage demands, it doesn't really get that ridiculous anymore. Sometimes like from a technical standpoint, it's intense, and you're just like, what? like that. Go back to that Halloween show, they're just like renting like an LED wall and stuff like that, and that's I'm lucky to say, like in all the years I haven't gotten a rider where I was just like, forget this, like who do you think you are? Like for the most part, everyone is very what's the word I'm looking for? They're respectful. They don't really need to. They know what they're walking into. They're not going to push it and ask you for like ridiculous things, But I'm sure if I was to go one step higher, we'd start getting into, hey, we need like leather couches brought in brand new backstage, and stuff like that. Like when you go on, I think that site was like the Smoking Gun or something like that, and they had like the Foo Fighters rider and the J-Lo rider and stuff like that. It gets batshit insane, but doing metal shows, it's pretty down to earth.
What is the biggest mess you've had to clean up after a show?
Watain, obviously. Those shows are legendary. In Montreal, like Animal Blood and that's the worst it's ever been. Like
there is a smell that comes with a Watain show.
Like it's gotten progressively better over the years. We've been doing shows with them for roughly 10 years, and every time they come back, it smells a little better. The first one was something else. That's when they were at their most intense, like dragging animal carcasses with them like across the country, and that was the show they famously got banned from Catacombs because they were caught chasing small animals in the back of the venue by the owners.
Really?
Yeah, we were doing 2 nights at Catacombs. The first show went off relatively without a hitch, and then the second one, the owner caught the band chasing some animals around and immediately canceled the show on the spot. Tried to reschedule it, tried to find a venue last minute. It seemed like too big of a mountain to climb, and we're just like, forget it, let's just scrap it.
Wow.
That's like the worst in terms of like cleanup. Like sometimes you have confetti to clean up and stuff like that, but it's not that bad.
Did you used to do guar too, I imagine?
I've never actually done a guar show.
Okay.
Just because it's passed through a lot of contemporaries, and I know the headaches that come along with cleaning up after them. And I was like, nah, I don't really need that. It's fine. Like, I've been offered it numerous times, but I just kind of was like, like the pain afterwards seems to be. I'm trying to remember a couple years back. I wish I remembered his name. He did a guar show, and like the cleaning bill wiped out his entire profit.
Oh yeah,
yeah, because they're just like the venue didn't know what they were getting into, and they're like, hey man, like they didn't. If
they don't set up with the plastic properly, it's a nightmare.
Forget it. Like like there was damaged equipment. The bathrooms were a complete calamity. It was disgusting. And I remember talking to him, and he was like, I made no money. Like it's all gone. just to to clean up the venue. So I was like, yeah, maybe I'll steer clear of that one.
I've toured with both of them. I'm not sure which smell I appreciate more.
What is the guar smell?
It's the rubber and sweat.
Ugh.
Yeah. It smells sort of like car tires, almost caoutchouc.
I can't imagine like wearing those costumes for a couple hours a day and probably not washing them and just like putting them in the trailer.
They were great. They were super nice.
Yeah.
And they had like a 2-3 man crew.
Which
that does it all
for the complexity of the show is pretty insane.
And Watain were intense.
Yeah. Not the most talkative bunch, but can't say anything bad about them.
No, as we did South America with them, we were sitting on these airplanes next to them, and they still have dried blood on their faces. Yeah, great. What do you think about Heavy MTL's lineup? There's
like some really cool stuff in there. I'm excited to see Beast in Black.
Okay.
This band, they're Finnish. It's members of Battle Beast, their new band. They just dropped a record last week that's very 80s pop sounding, whereas the previous one had more of a power metal vibe. So it's an interesting band, and it's the first time they're playing North America, which is really cool. And obviously a lot of the bands that we're friends with that we've done over the years, the Stick to Your Guns and the Cancer Bats and Beartooth, Knocked Loose, Fu Manchu, stuff like that. I missed Slayer on the last tour, so I want to see them one more time, definitely, before they go away. And Galactic Empire, I'm kind of curious to see too.
Yeah. We'll see what that lives up to the hype. Then.
Yeah, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and
I hope they get to play at night, but they're probably not going to get to.
Yeah, I gotta bet. Hopefully they realize that the more theatrical bands, like Watain is playing too, and who wants to see that band in the sunlight?
It just doesn't work.
Same thing like when Neurosis played a couple years ago. Like you just this band needs to play in the dark. Like it just doesn't work in the sunlight. So yeah, there's some stuff obviously I could do without that I'm not a big fan of, but definitely has their fans, so that's great. But it's the same case every year. There's always a few bands that I've never seen before that I'm super excited to see. Despised Icons doing Day of Mourning. I think Municipal Waste is doing Art of Partying, if I'm not mistaken, which is going to be pretty cool. So yeah, I'm super happy with the lineup. So looking forward to it.
Do you think they were panicking when they leaked?
I'm sure.
Is that something that is a good press, or?
It's kind of like when you're a kid and
we'll just lay the groundwork for everyone. Heavy MTL is a huge festival up here in Montreal.
Yeah.
And Slayer on their Facebook, I believe.
Their Twitter, I think.
Okay, posted the lineup flyer, let's say.
A week early, basically.
A week early, and it was up for 20 minutes, and it got pulled down, but everyone shared it, and it went everywhere.
How fast things work with the internet now. 20 minutes it was there, and it didn't matter. It was everywhere.
Yeah. All the major news sites.
Scrolling my Twitter feed, scrolling my Instagram feed, my Facebook feed. It's all I saw. Because I missed the initial. Someone's like, the Heavy Montreal lineup leaked, and I was like, and then it's on Slayer's Twitter, and I went there and it wasn't. I was like, it's gone. But all I had to do was open my Facebook, and then it was everywhere, and everyone giving their 2 cents on the lineup.
I like the how Heavy MTL handled it in their post.
Yeah,
they're like, we're excited to announce it, our new lineup, but obviously
Slayer was a little too excited.
Not as excited as Slayer.
But yeah, I can't imagine you work on something for the better part of a year, putting it together, and a festival of that level, it's everything that has to go into announcing it, coordinating with all these artists and sponsors and so on and so forth, and it just gets leaked out there, it's
there goes your bust your cherry.
Yeah, exactly. The flip side is it's kind of cool. Like it's like, oh, it leaked, and you know, like there's like this buzz that builds from it, and people are excited, you know. So there's a plus to it, but the minus I think definitely outweighs it, and it couldn't have been a good day for the people who are working there, and had to, you know, and especially the guy who leaked it. I can't imagine. I hope he still has a job, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well,
yeah.
They probably just sent it to Slayer and said you're going to announce at this point, but they
I'm sure.
that
Like
or something.
what I'm assuming probably happened is that the announce. Like, it happens a lot with any kind of tour. Like, hey, please announce and go on sale this date. Actually, no, something's changed. You know, like there's a problem with the poster. This band had to drop out. No, and we got to change the announce. And I'm sure it got lost somewhere along the line, and they didn't get the memo about the date changing, and just threw it out there, and found themselves in a shitstorm, to say the least.
Well, in their favor, they have a strong lineup.
Yeah. That's
it would have been if it was the opposite.
Yeah,
like
if it was something that was, that got raked through the coals.
Like Marilyn Manson and Slipknot again or something.
Yeah, exactly.
There's interesting bands. Yeah.
Which is like, hey, these bands either haven't played heavy ever or haven't played in a couple of years.
Yeah, and Ghost is hot. You can put Ghost on anything and everyone's happy.
Yeah. It seems to be like the biggest, for lack of a better word, new metal band that's come out in the last couple of years that's able to be an arena band. It's
insane.
Yeah,
quickly too.
Yeah, like I saw them like 2013, 2014
with Opeth.
They headlined at Corona with
that was the turning point.
Ancient Wisdom and King Dude.
Yes,
if I'm not mistaken, that was like the first time I saw them. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And then never would have. If you're like, you played me that record and you're like, this band's gonna be one of the biggest bands in metal, I'd be like, yeah, sure, whatever, okay.
And I love watching all these tough metal dudes.
Yeah, get into it.
Singing
I was like,
along.
Yeah, I was like, it's a pop. They're like a pop band that happens to have like, happens to be like Satanists and have a very metal imagery. But if I played that record for my mom, she'd probably be, oh, this is pretty good.
I did it. I work in a daycare.
Yeah.
And on one day a week, I show up early, and I clean, like, we have like art rooms for the kids next to the classrooms, and I was playing Ghost, not the most recent, but the previous one, the He Is song and stuff, and she's like, oh, this is like the first thing that you play that I like, an educator says to me. And I was like, he's talking about Satan.
And then and probably immediately got mortified. And like,
no, they're very used to me. But
yeah.
Have you ever considered having like an extensive enterprise festival?
I've toyed with it, but the logistics that go into it, being a one-man operation especially, is just, people, but you should do a fest, and you start to get the ball rolling, you start talking to bands, and it immediately gets complicated as soon as you say the word festival. Mm-hmm. People just automatically assume there's boatloads of money there. Like, oh, you must have like sponsorships or something. Like, well, we're going to ask you for 3 times what we normally ask you for, and we're not going to play under this band. And I had toyed with doing one for my 20th anniversary. I was like, yeah, maybe I'll send out some feelers and try to plan it, and it just got super complicated right away. And I was like, nah, this just isn't for me. Like, it's just not something I'm too keen on. Like, it's getting bands to reroute their tours, and and finding the proper venue, and it's I get asked continuously, and like I think now I'm like, nah, it's not for me. I'm not a fest guy.
I feel like Heavy MTL has set something up really strong.
Yeah.
And
I feel like Montreal does not need another metal festival. Like, we got enough of them.
Well, with Montebello being
there's a hole
defunct
there
right now.
Yeah. But you think of, there's Ear Slaughter, there's now Maryland Death Fest is running every year. Puza definitely has like a couple.
I was going to say Puza's insane the way that they said it. I don't know how they organize that.
Yeah, they're like a committee now. They're a couple people helping out and running it now.
Yeah, Puza Fest is this huge punk fest where there's stages outside, and it's in like I want to say like 5-6 venues running all at the same time.
All within kind of a walking distance. Like you do Fufun, Catacombs, Thiet Sainte Catherine. They do the outdoor stage, and then if it permits and they have big enough bands, they'll have a show at Club Soda, and it's very much akin to what they do in Florida for the fest. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I have, yes.
Yeah, so it's pretty much like a similar setup with what they do, and like kind of like a mini South by Southwest almost. Like
I'm friends with Chad, the merch guy of A Wilhelm Scream.
Yes, and they're definitely a fest band.
Yes,
they played it numerous times. Yeah. Exactly. But and I'm sure there's metal fests. Well, there was Wings of Metal, which doesn't happen anymore. But there just seems to be so many festivals in Montreal, especially for metal, that I was like, nah, we don't need another one.
You're doing well.
Yeah. I was like, no, I don't. There's one thing I definitely don't need is more work. It's fine.
What is the show that was your most successful? Your favorite, the show you're most proud of?
Probably the first time I got to do a Metropolis show. It was the first time I actually was able to bring my mom to a show and be like, this is what I do, because prior to that, doing shows in dive bars for a couple hundred people, because at the time, I was like, I'm going to try to make a living off of this. And probably as a parent, you're just like, my son wants to live off death metal, okay, let him give it a try. And, being able to do a show for 2,000 kids. Mm-hmm. And it was, I think it was a Day to Remember in August Burns Red, if I'm not mistaken. And, it's especially gratifying when it's a band that we took from doing EventCo and playing in front of 100 people and watching it go hey, they're going to play this room and there's going to be 300 people, and then we're going to do this room and there's 900 people, and then we can put them in a 2,000 cap room. It's super gratifying to watch these bands build, and to feel like you have some part in that journey with them. So a lot of the Metropolis shows hold a special place in my heart. The shows at Lex, definitely, it's all kind of a jumbled mess. It was kind of always the same 20 bands playing with each other, so it would be
different combinations.
Yeah. So what's your favorite Converge show? And I'm like, oh god, I can't, the last one. It's sometimes hard to remember the specific one.
That mythical Dillinger show where he put his foot through the stage.
Through the stage. Yeah. And it was one of the last. It was when Dimitri was still in the band.
Exactly.
Too. Yeah, those shows definitely hold a special place in my heart. The couple of years we were doing shows at Underworld, I felt like the local scene was at its strongest. We had a nice community. Those shows were amazing. Almost every show we were doing, it's a 300 cap room, but almost every show we were doing there was sold out, and there was just so many local bands, and we kind of knew almost every kid by name that was coming to these shows. So it's hard to pick one in particular that means the most to me, and getting to book a lot of the bands that I grew up loving too. It's when I bought the tape in grade 8, and then fast forward 15 years and I'm putting together a show for them. It blows my mind. If I was to tell the 14-year-old me, be like, hey, one day you're going to put on concerts and you're going to book that band, booking Napalm Death for the first time was surreal for me. It was just I couldn't. I was I grew up listening to this band, and now I'm going to get like vegan food for Barney, and
he's awesome.
It's crazy.
He's really awesome.
Yeah, he's amazing.
What would be the show that was like the biggest flop?
There's been a couple. Recently, I did the Michael Schenker Fest.
Okay, yeah, it was like a guitar virtuoso.
I took a sizable beating on that one. It was outside my comfort zone. The primary demographic was baby boomers, and my network isn't built for that. And I was just kind of out of my depth. That and then there's been over the years disasters. I remember doing a Chimera show during the STM strike and had to cancel it on the spot because no one could literally get to the show.
Where was the venue?
It was at Rainbow.
Yes.
So and I think I'm trying to remember who else played it. Kanai played it. Kanai.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to them. Yeah.
And Soilwork, maybe? Soilwork had actually broken down and we're going to make the show in the end. But yeah, it was the type of thing where, I was like, hey, the subway's shut down. This venue's pretty much only accessible from this subway station. We got to cancel it. And then that was the first time I had to pay a cancellation fee. And learn that lesson, and...
That was a nice conversation.
Yeah. But I was just they're just hey, we just need this. And I was and I didn't know how to fight it or to contest it, and I was just okay, it is what it is, it wasn't an act of God, it was just, I wasn't protected from something like that. It's just it was one of those shit happens type of things, and
they're get in the van, we're going to an ATM conversations.
The classic walk to the ATM. The first time I had to do that was pretty rough too. I think one of the main reasons I lasted so long is I got humbled really quickly. So my second show I did was for this band Ensign, the hardcore band from New Jersey, and the turnout was less than stellar, and the singer fell off the stage of EventCo, which is not a very high stage.
No, it was like
a freak accident, and he just rolled his ankle really, really badly, and we had to like cancel the show on the spot, and I had to refund kids, and so like, I learned the lesson like pretty quick, like the highest high and the lowest low. So I kind of was like, okay, so it can be like this and it can be like that, you know. And from that day forward, I kind of had like, it was always in the back of my mind, like, I gotta be cautious, this can happen, it could all fall to shit, and never kind of put myself too far out there.
Let's talk about some myths that I've heard. Not about you, but in booking in general.
Okay. There's myths about
you went to Tide now. Do you and agents, like, you take like, you know you're going to take a hit on a show, but you get like pitched a bunch of shows at once.
Yeah.
And you know that some are going to be losses, but you know some are going to be successes, so you take the group of them and you hope they balance out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like, you have to kind of cultivate a relationship with the agent. He takes on new bands, you know, that probably aren't bringing in a big commission for him that he has to build. So it's, you know, it's a relationship we all have to kind of take part in, you know. There's definitely times where I was like, I'm going to book this band, I really like them, there's probably going to be no one there the first time, and I might lose a couple $100, but hopefully it grows into something. And like you said, same agent will sell me another show that's a couple months down the line, and I know it's going to sell out whatever building I put it in, and I'll make back what I lost on that show twofold. So it is what it is, you know. It's definitely like, you have to take chances, you have to build bands, you know, because you don't get to just cherry pick what you want. You know, it's
a business relationship.
Exactly. And you know, like so many bands that we did the first shows for, they weren't home runs. We had to build it. And you know, like I remember, like I booked the first Mastodon show here, and I couldn't give away tickets for it. It was with High on Fire.
Wow. Who
didn't get over the border because at the time they were traveling in this very weird converted U-Haul that had like bunks and like a little.
It was very illegal, I'm sure.
Very illegal. And they rolled up to the border and they opened it and they're like, you can't drive this. And turned them away. But Mastodon had been in the country, so they're like, I guess we're going to do a Mastodon show. And I like charged $5 and people were like, no, we want our money back. And
it was like Blood Mountain, or even before that?
No, it was like, was it Remission?
Okay. Yeah,
the one with the horse on it.
Yeah.
It was that era. And,
unbelievable.
And people were like, oh, I was at the show. I was like, you definitely not.
Now they're like,
like a huge band.
Yeah.
But it was just funny that, you know, like once upon a time, like I couldn't even give away those tickets.
That's
like,
funny.
No, I want my $15 back.
That's funny.
And I was
High
like,
on Fire's not coming. I don't get to see Matt Pike Chess.
Shirtless.
Not coming.
Exactly.
What is the venue you miss the most?
From a show going standpoint, I miss the Spectrum.
Oh yeah,
I loved that room. I saw so many amazing shows there, and it's a venue size that we just don't have still to this day. Like
L'Astral, or is it still bigger?
It's actually almost twice as big.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. Spectrum was about 1,000 and 1,100, and L'Astral is about 600.
Okay.
So we still don't have like a venue that fits 1,000 people. We have like 12 to 1,200-ish. We have like a lot that are in the 800 to 900s, and then you jump all the way to Metropolis right after that. So yeah, from going to shows there, that place was definitely an integral part of my youth. And you know, obviously Lex and Lenko and Underworld, like all these places I miss.
I went to a friend's bachelor party and it was at Lenko.
Oh wow.
And I was like, just like reliving. I stood like on the stage where I used to stand and like looked out, and I was like, this room's much smaller than I remember. Like
a couple years back, these kids rented it for a show, like just from a pure nostalgic thing. They overpaid for it. Like it was there's no stage there anymore. If there is, it's very very small. It was just very funny that like we all just showed up because they're like, just try to recapture our youth, you know. And
lots of good times there drinking. It's funny because I used to go drink in that alley next to where the bands would park, and then it was an AA place, which just made no sense that I'd walk in and play it shit face most of the time.
Completely shit faced. Yeah, but like there'd be dozens of people out there. Like as soon as the band would end, there'd be a stampede outside, and people would be drinking their Bull Max, like 6.1 out of like a paper bag, and then the band would start and everyone would stampede back in, and
so much fun.
Oh god. And the amount of bands that played there,
Blessed by Broken Hearts and all those things.
We did Bring Me the Horizon there, and they just played Place Belle, you know, and Avenged Sevenfold play there, you know, like it's Alexis on Fire played there countless times. Like, you so many bands came through there.
Second myth: does a band get paid more if they pull up in a tour bus?
Usually, I mean,
you know what I mean? Like a band that will take the hit and get themselves a tour bus, do they get higher guarantees?
I feel like they have to ask for more because they have a higher operating cost.
And a booker will be willing to pay more?
Or like it's just like, hey, like this band is touring and they're in a bus and they have like a staff of 8 people to pay. Like, you need to give me X thousands of dollars to pay for all this. Sorry, and then the band shows up in a van.
A van, yeah.
They can afford to take like a lower guarantee and take a little bit of a risk because they don't have to pay all these people. So usually, if I had to look at, hey, I booked this show, were they in a bus? Did I pay a lot of money? Yes. Like it just ends up being that way.
Okay,
because
so it's two positive myths. I like that.
But that's like it's a very weird one. Like I've had bands show up in vans that I've definitely paid more than bands in buses. Just like some bands can definitely still stay in a van and.
Oh, they rake it in if you can handle touring in a van. And
August Burns Red stayed in a van for a long time. Every Time I Die, Black Dahlia.
I was gonna say
a lot of these bands, and they just like we just want to buy houses and cement our future, and then we'll tour with a little bit of luxury, and then there's times I've bands that get in buses and pull up to these venues and
nobody shows up,
and it's funny that way. So more often than not, yes, but there are definite exceptions.
What is a local band that you remember booking as an opener that is now a huge band and you're proud of them?
I guess Despised Icon. I actually booked literally their first show with a completely different lineup with when Alex played drums and you look at what they grew to, and it's funny that seeing them play 2 sold out Club Soda shows. In terms of like local bands that got big, racking my brain as to other ones. Definitely touched most bands. We did like a couple of Beyond Creation shows, and to see where they're at this point is amazing. And I think I don't know. I'm on the spot here.
That's okay. No, I knew you were going to say Despised. That's what I had in my mind.
That's that's a band that had a very integral part of me being able to quit my day job. Was doing shows for that band. Where it's just like they showed me like, hey, we can do shows and 1,000 people will show up and the band will get paid a lot. I'll make money and be able to pay my rent, and it was definitely something that helped me jump off that metaphorical cliff. Was doing shows for that band.
What would be some advice that you'd have for a young promoter getting out there?
Just work at McDonald's. Don't be a lawyer, be a banker. It's a very, very hard business, especially if you just wake up one morning like, I want to be a promoter. I was just in it's right place, right time. There was no one else doing the type of shows I was. It was literally kind of at the advent of a genre of music almost. For lack of a better term, metalcore hadn't been monetized yet, and it wasn't on MTV, it wasn't on Warped Tour yet, I was just super lucky. Whereas these kids that go to these show business schools with the aspirations of being a promoter and setting up shows, it's no joke. It's a very difficult business, getting your foot in the door, finding the right acts to book. It's definitely a big part of it is chance, to be honest. I hope I don't discourage anybody.
No, I think your personality has a lot to do with it too.
Yeah, and it's a very high stress job. Yeah. You have to be able to handle stress very well.
You're so nice, but I know you're very straight at the same time.
Yeah, you have to be. Yeah. I learned that lesson. I got walked over a couple times being in the beginning because I just wanted to be everybody's friend and I wanted to accommodate everybody and I wanted everyone to be happy. And then there's a point where you realize this is a business and you have to put your foot down sometimes and say no sometimes, and that's a big part of it too. So you can definitely be a nice guy in this business and treat people with respect, and but it's like any other field of work. You gotta protect yourself when it comes time.
Will there be a show at the Bell Center or Place Bell, which is a smaller,
I'm
expensive enterprise show?
I'm actually working on 2 Place Belle shows.
Really?
Which is kind of insane. I don't want to let them out of the bag.
That's huge.
It's kind of terrifying. I was a partner on my first Place Belle show, that Bring Me the Horizon show. And
were you? Okay, awesome.
And just walking, because that's a band that we built from the ground up, and EventCo were very gracious and let me be a part of it. And walking backstage through that room and just seeing the enormity of it and how everything works is kind of daunting. So it's definitely like a terrifying prospect, but an exciting one at the same time.
Yeah, for everyone at home, the Bell Center is our arena where our hockey team plays. The Montreal Canadiens.
Every major act, Metallica plays there, Rihanna plays there. The
Place Belle is a smaller.
It's a smaller version. It's
10,000, I want to say.
10 or 13.
Yeah,
I wish I remembered the exact.
Yeah.
Fun fact: the floor is actually bigger at Place Belle than
really
Bell
at the Bell Center.
Yeah,
really.
Because when they were constructing it, one of the main things they wanted to do was to have concerts there.
It's really well set up. I love it. A hockey game there, and
I haven't seen a hockey game there. I saw Perfect Circle there. I saw Scorpions. I saw Stone Temple Pilots.
But like in and out, like public transport commute is fantastic.
Like door to door,
even
amazing.
Though it's in Laval.
And they have better beer too.
They do, and they have a higher selection of more of them.
Yeah, which I wish.
Shout out to Trou du Diable.
Yeah, that was like the thing that and the prices are cheaper too. Like
it's true.
Better beer for less money.
It's true.
But no, it's in terms of like an arena experience, it's definitely one of the better ones I've had.
Is there like an end game of you joining EventCo?
It's a very, very awkward question. A couple years ago, I kind of got sick of it. It was
promoting in general.
Just promoting in general. I kind of just had like a midlife crisis. I looked at like my brother, who's a couple years younger, and he had 2 kids in a house, and I was like, I still live like a highly functional 16-year-old, for lack of a better example. And it was just kind of like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Like, it's because at one point, like, I can only build a band up so high before it just gets out of my league, and I can't handle it because I'm one guy, and the Live Nations and AEGs and the EventCo type can offer stuff that I can't. And it's something that I accept. I don't have to love it or like it, but it is what it is, So eventually I got over it, but like I like being my own boss.
Absolutely.
I love being my own boss. Like I just ran off to Japan for 5 weeks because I'm my own boss. And like there's definitely times where it sucks, like, getting home at 2 a.m. and your diet consists of cheeseburgers and pizza and just pure garbage. Like there's things that come along with being like an indie guy that sucks, but there is a lot of upside to it. Like, it's my business. I can decide who I book, what I book. It's so that I've. If you were to quiz me right now and be like, "Hey, would you take a job at a bigger company?" I'd probably say no. I'd probably stay as an indie guy at this point because I've kind of grown accustomed to the things that being on my own affords me. Yeah. Is that a good answer?
It's a very good answer. Yeah. Well, thank you for taking the time.
No problem. My
Coming
pleasure.
out, Dieu du Ciel, drinking Mega Mosaika with me. Always so nice.
Oh, thank you.
I've been looking forward to this interview.
I was looking forward to this too. I love catching up with you. I love talking to you. And
cheers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Hey, boys and girls, thank you so much for listening right to the end. I love it. Love you all, and I appreciate you all doing that. Love talking to Dave. He's just always I always say it, he's just the nicest guy. Always has been. Doesn't matter where you are or how you meet him. He just always has a smile. He might be in a rush, but he'll always take the time to say hi to you. I love digging into the behind-the-scenes section of putting on shows, the stuff that goes on behind the curtain. We get a chance to see deeper what makes this show tick. From buying a ticket to going and showing up and seeing the show, there's a lot more work that has gone on than most people think. So big thank you to Dave for taking that time to come and hang out with me and drinking a pint. I'm doing a whole bunch of interviews this coming week, coming up with a bunch of really interesting people. I'm excited to share all that with you. I am leaving on tour in 2 weeks. I'm going to be in the States on the Hell Over North America, the Blast Beat Party with Aborted, Cryptopsy, Benighted, and Hideous Divinity. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, you have to get these tickets because they're going to sell out. It's going to be sick. These shows are going to be off the hook. It was crazy in Europe because we just did the Hell Over Europe 2 alongside Aborted and Benighted, and that was insane, and you don't want to miss this party. So check that out. I'm going to put the ticket links in the description. As always, I just want to take the time to thank you all. I really appreciate you hanging out with me and my guests every week. I appreciate all the support I'm getting. I appreciate all your nice comments. I appreciate all the kind messages which I'm receiving. If you want to take that one step further, please subscribe to the podcast if you already haven't. And if you are subscribed, please like the podcast, rate it, and share it on your socials. Share it with people who like good beer, people who like tour anecdotes, people who like silly stories, if they like behind the scenes. I really appreciate all of you. There would be no podcast if it wasn't for your support, and there's only more coming. So stay tuned next week. Vox and Hops, episode number 23, coming at you. Cheers, Vox and Hops heads.